Hi lovelies! I hope you're staying safe, healthy, and happy these days. And I'm so glad you're here for another episode of my Cook With Me series, where I'm sharing some of my very favorite quick and easy recipes that can be made with things you probably already have on hand in your pantry, your refrigerator, or your freezer. Now today, it is all about this incredible smoky corn chowder. This recipe actually comes from my cookbook, Meals Made Easy, but it's been over a year since I've made it at home, and I just found myself craving some recently because it's really the ultimate comfort food. It's sweet, it's savory, it's smoky, it's got a hint of spice, which is totally optional, and honestly, it is one of those recipes that I come back to over and over and over again. My pot is heating up over medium-high heat, and to that, I'm just going to get a little oil happening here. Now in my cookbook, this recipe calls for a couple slices of bacon, but I will just admit that I didn't have any bacon on hand at home, so instead I am improvising with some turkey kielbasa. It's got the same smoky, savory flavor, so it's going to work just as well. You can see I cut it into really little bits. If you have bacon, go ahead and use it. If not, you can use any sort of smoked sausage that you want to, or you can skip the meat in this recipe entirely and just keep it vegetarian. It's totally up to you. Basically, what I'm gonna do is get started by getting my kielbasa into the pan. And once that kielbasa is in the pan, I'm just gonna let it cook away for 2 or 3 minutes. I want it to just start crisping up around the edges. It gives it a really nice texture, and of course, it brings out even more of that great smoky flavor. All right, so as soon as you start to see a little bit of that browning happening around the edges of your kielbasa, you can go ahead and get your veggies into the pot. Now, today I'm using a combination of onion, celery, and some bell pepper. If you can't find celery or bell pepper, you can leave them out. It is totally optional. You wanna make sure though that you've got some onion, because of course, when it comes to soup, onion is always essential. I'll let those veggies cook up just until they start to soften, between 3 and 4 minutes. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add some minced garlic to the pan, as well as 1 minced chipotle pepper. Now, I have to tell you, chipotle pepper is one of my very favorite ingredients because it's got a ton of great smoky flavor and also a little bit of spice. I'm using 1 chipotle pepper in this recipe because I don't want it to be so spicy that Elle can't eat it. She does actually enjoy a little bit of spice, if you can believe it. I've minced it really finely and I'm going to get it into the pan. Now, if you find yourself without chipotle peppers for this recipe, not to worry at all. You could swap in some chipotle powder here, or if you want the smoke without any spice, you could use some smoked paprika instead. Any of those options will definitely work. Once I've got that yumminess in my pan, I'm gonna let it cook up for another minute or so before I go ahead and add my corn to the pan. Now, I am using frozen corn here because that's what I had on hand, but you could definitely use canned corn in this recipe, or even fresh corn if you can get your hands on some, would be really wonderful here. I've also got a couple potatoes that I've just peeled and diced, and I'm going to get those into my pot as well. Next, I'm going to be adding some chicken broth to this, as well as about a cup of milk. Greg is behind the camera right now, holding it down, making sure everything's in focus. And I've been trying to get him to come in front of the camera and say hi, but it's a no-go. One day I'll get him around here. So we're just hitting this with a little salt and pepper at this point. I'll give this all a good stir, and then as soon as my liquid comes to a boil, I'm going to go ahead and reduce my heat to medium-low, pop a lid on this, and let it simmer away for about 15 minutes or so, or just until those potatoes are nice and tender. After 15 minutes, we can go ahead and thicken this soup up. Now to do that, I am using a combination of cornstarch mixed with a little bit of water. This is called a cornstarch slurry. If you don't have cornstarch on hand, you can swap some flour in here instead. That will definitely work just as well. Then I'm just going to stir that mixture into my soup, and you'll notice in just 2 or 3 minutes, it starts to thicken up and get this really beautiful, rich consistency, and it's ready to be enjoyed. I like serving it topped with a nice big dollop of sour cream that cuts through that spice a little bit, and I also like topping it with some freshly chopped chives if you have some on hand. If you're looking for something rich, creamy, and comforting, this soup totally hits the spot. Plus, it freezes really, really well, so you can go ahead and make a double batch and save a little for later. How convenient. Guys, I hope you'll give it a try for yourselves, and if you do, be sure to tweet me, Instagram me, or Facebook me a photo, because you always know how much I love seeing your kitchen creations. I'll link this recipe in the description box below so you can find it there. And finally, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe because there is lots more deliciousness where this came from.